Hello, hello, hello. I am Josetta Yvonne, your Bookbae today, coming on for a quick moment with a quick message and review for the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. Navigate an unequal system, learn tools for emotional wellness, and get the help you deserve by Rheeda Walker, PhD. Now, this is a really great read if you are just looking for ways to always sharpen and improve your mental health. She has different tips in here. She also gives a history on certain things in regards to racism. So let me read the back part first for you, and then we'll get into some passages in here that I want to share, and maybe that will interest you in picking the book up and reading it. So here we go. This is also considered to be a self-help book. I know I've been putting some self-help books mostly out there. I do read for fun, but I also read to empower myself. So with my reading, I do a little bit of both. It's not just all things that are light and fun. It's things that build me up, that set me free, that take care of me. And this is just a little bit of a tidbit I was thinking about as I was getting ready to read back the book. I will never forget, it might have been Dave Chappelle or maybe D.L. Hughley. I can't remember which comedian, but I remember someone made a joke one time that if you put anything in a book or on the news that Black people would not know, because the assumption was we do not read and we do not watch the news. And he said it jokingly when he said it, but the reality is some people actually feel that way about Black people. So yeah, I just remember someone saying that, and that really stood out to me when they said that. Put it in a book and they'll never know. In fact, I think his joke was something like, you can reinstate slavery and they would never know because they would have to read it, and they don't read. Yeah, anyway. So let me get into this book, this self-help book. So let me start from the back and just read what she has here. It's time to reclaim your mental health. We can't deny it any longer. There is a Black mental health crisis in our world today. In addition, the effects of undereducation, poverty, and systemic racism have greatly impacted African Americans' access to effective mental health treatment. It's time to take Black mental health seriously. It's time to heal our psychological distress, find community, and combat marginalization in order to thrive. So, how do you go about getting the best care possible for yourself or a loved one in a system steeped in racial bias? In this much needed guide, psychologist and professor Rheeda Walker offers an unflinching exploration of Black mental health and provides a comprehensive roadmap to getting the care you need and deserve. Packed with essential information and advice for navigating the system, this invaluable resource will help you recognize and understand mental health conditions, discover real tools for coping with symptoms, and learn to be your own advocate. If you or someone you love needs help, this book will show you how to find it. So this actually came out, I think, during the pandemic when I initially picked it up, and I read it maybe last year, but I refer back to it because it has some references, and it has also some suggested reading and things and tools to speak with and discuss with your children, which I thought was really effective. If you want to share, I know everybody doesn't want to discuss racism with their children. I get it. It's not like a rosy topic, you know, but it is a necessary topic, especially if your children are Black. But I believe that also it should be discussed even if your children aren't Black, because even though it may not impact them directly, you could be an ally. You could be someone that that is able to stop it or help it not happen. You know, stand in the gap for someone if you notice it's going on, and speak on it, especially if you have influence or power. I just think that is something that it can't be ran from, and the impact of it is very real, and it can't be ignored. So yeah, let me share some passages that I wanted to share with you, because she gives a lot of great information, and she talks about shifting an anxious perspective toward positive change. The struggle can be inherited. We all know a lot of things are passed through our DNA, including trauma. She talks about psychological fortitude and how it affects our bodies. This is one interesting tidbit I thought was interesting, when she said here, there has been some research that showed that Black people are generally more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia than with bipolar disorder, a type of depression. Some people know bipolar disorder as manic depression because the individual seems to cycle from very high mood to very low mood. They may seem crazy and erratic, but it is not the same as behavior that we see for someone who suffers from schizophrenia. Bipolar disorder is treated with medication, and the individual can usually live a full and productive life. People who have severe schizophrenia will often require more assistance as they are unable to take care of themselves. And she just kind of goes into detail that many times it's a misdiagnosis, that sometimes it really is depression. It's not truly schizophrenia, but they talked about how depression shows up in us and how it looks different in Black people. So let me skip across here. Let's see. I want to give you something else. Of course, we all know that racism in any form is bad for your mental health. She talks about here about how it causes many of us to have high blood pressure, diabetes. Let's go here. I thought this one was really interesting too, because I never had a name for it, but here she talks about John DeVito at Yale talks about aversive racism. Never heard of aversive racism, but I'm sure, you know, we've all probably felt felt it at some point in time. So she says here, I was present many years ago when he gave an enlightening talk about how it works. This is the aversive racism. He described an example of a white military officer makes a decision about who to promote. Because he is uncomfortable with people who are racially different, he avoids those individuals. He is not mean and does not engage in overtly discriminatory behavior, but he also avoids social contact. This is problematic because when the time comes to make a decision about who to promote, the officer has more familiarity with those he has engaged with informally compared to those he has avoided. Thus, the person he knows better because of time spent is more likely to be remembered fondly and get the promotion. No matter what we call it, being subjected to negative stereotypes and mistreatment is a tremendous psychological burden that continuously rests on your shoulders. It is of no surprise that you feel anxious and easily angered. There is sufficient research that shows that racism is not just another stressor that people deal with. For Black people, racism is linked to poor mental outcomes and emotional stability, even when more general life stressors like work stress, relationship stress, and financial stress are taken into consideration. And I think we've all heard the quote by James Baldwin, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. And I thought this was interesting also because it says here, a large study of Black Caribbean immigrants found that the longer that they were in the U.S., the more likely they were to experience depression and poor overall health. So even though people fight to come here, this is a thriving country, Black Caribbean immigrants found that they stayed here, as they stayed here longer, they experienced depression and overall poor health. And she says this says something pretty damning about the society in which we live. And let me see, it was another passage or tidbit. So this is in her section, research can indirectly amplify psychological fortitude. And I thought this was interesting, which I kind of just referred to this earlier. So it says here on page 79, advanced research would help us better understand the insidious nature of discrimination. Preliminary epigenetics research suggests that the effects of racism are passed from one generation to the next. Imagine that. The effects that racism has on your body are passed on to your children. They were passed on to you from your ancestors who lived under the most devastating conditions. It is no wonder that you're not angrier than you are about the circumstances in which you find yourself. It is highly likely that your mother and grandmother made do with what they had. They may have been amazing at making a way out of no way. They survived in the manner in which they saw others survive. But I would like to see you get to a PF, which is a psychological fortitude, a 95, where racism has very little to no impact, and where sexism has no impact. Don't we all hope that? That is the goal. That is the goal every day. And let me share one more. I did love this as well here when she says, another important detail to consider is that you are not in this alone. Because I think sometimes we can, just think about me. An African proverb says, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. So I thought that was a great reminder that, again, this fight to reclaim or keep your inner peace and your positivity and continue to be resilient and move forward with, life coming at you, but also racism coming at you. Not alone with that, we're in it together. So then she suggests some books to read, which I want to pick some of these up. I haven't had a chance to pick any of these up. Now, I did read The Miseducation of the Negro. That was really good. She also referenced, let me see what it is to read about the Black Moors. The Black Moors contribute to European civilization. I don't think that's a book, though. She just said to read about them. She referenced also reading the book, The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality. And she also referenced reading a book called Breaking the Chains of Psychological Slavery by Dr. Naeem Akbar, which sounded really interesting to me. I thought this was interesting. I didn't want this video to be long, but let me just, give you a couple more things. She talked about language. I thought this was interesting because everybody, our dialect, even though most of us, can code switch and go from, this or that. I mean, it's so funny, and this is off of the subject of this, but my son, we were at, I think, Starbucks or a restaurant, and it was a drive-through, and I was talking to him regular, and then I ordered through the intercom, and he said, "You changed your voice." And I was like, yeah. And it's something I don't even think about. And when he said it to me, I thought about how I grew up hearing my grandparents, particularly my grandmother, change her voice. And when he mentioned it to me, I thought to myself, why do I do that? And I remember later on, I remember why. And I remember my grandmother just being like when she would call doctor's appointments, or she would call the power company, or we would go pay her bill downtown, or she'd go to town and pay her bills. I remember she had a certain voice she used. And I think it was because to make sure people did not misjudge her as being uneducated. And she wanted to make sure that she was treated right when she was on the phone and not mistreated because she was not speaking, correctly according to, I guess, just American standards. And so she would change her voice when she talked. I could tell when she was on the phone doing business. I can tell when she was on the phone with the bank, or, like I said, the power company, or anybody that was not family. I knew who she was on the phone with based on how she spoke. And so it's so funny how some things are just ingrained in you since childhood, and it's just second nature. You know how to change your voice when you need to, and sometimes when you don't even need to. Because I was just at Starbucks. I don't even know why. I was like, "Hi, let me da 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 da," and my son was like, "You changed your voice when you order our food." So I noticed that anytime we go places, like when you get ready to do this, you change your voice. He's 11. He's like, "You change your voice," and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? You don't have to change your voice, but you do want to make sure that you speak clearly where people understand you." I don't want, but it was based off of how I grew up. Like, you don't want people to misjudge you, and we know people are judging even when they say they're not judging. Come on now. Come on now. Let's keep it 100 with each other. Keep it 100. So in this point, she says, this point about language is an example that illustrates how you have been brainwashed to buy into African inferiority. Meanwhile, Black people are out here surviving brilliantly. Most of us use African American vernacular English. Of course, we use slang, but AAVE, which is the African American vernacular English, is not slang or lazy. Even if she ain't never on time is not English. It is governed by a West African grammar structure and English words for a people who were self-taught in horrid conditions and were segregated far longer than integrated. Putting our culture down for surviving will compromise your authenticity and your well-being. Code switching, when you shift from your more comfortable African American vernacular to standard American English, is understandable. However, rejecting Black English as ghetto or slang is problematic. You have to shift how you think about the legitimacy of Black people beyond sports and other forms of entertainment. Love it. So then she goes into about reclaiming your Black culture beyond America, reclaiming your reclaim by imagining your ancestors' true stories. Love that. Another book she references is When Things Fall Apart. Toni Morrison's Beloved, Children of Blood and Bones. And let me see if I want to add anything else. This video is long enough. Let's see. I thought I had one more for you, but maybe I don't. Maybe that is it. I think that's going to be it, guys. So I hope that the tidbits I gave you from the book, you really enjoy. And that you're able to, you know, pick up the book, research, read, and I thought there was one more because I thought she had mentioned, I wanted to tell you guys about, I can't find the section, but she was just saying how to get back, you know, and basically she was like forming your own traditions. Oh, this is it right here. And this is gonna be it for real. Okay. So she says, ways to make your reclaiming education a lived reality. And I won't read this blurb, I'll just read the little bullet points. But a couple of ways she said to help reclaim and to, I don't know the right word to describe it, but you know, I guess just help with your mental health, with the racism, with combating thoughts of inferiority, is to gather your stories, from your family. Create traditions that affirms your Africanness. Be creative. Visit community resources. Take advantage of opportunities that exist in your community. Go to local African American history museums and other Black cultural institutions. I know I took my son to DC to the African American museum there, and we also went to like the Indian one and to some of the others. With that African American museum, oh my gosh, the Smithsonian in DC, like, guys, if you have not, and it's completely free, you know, just make sure you go online, or I'm not sure if it's still the same way, but we just registered and we got our little paper, because I mean, it gets so packed. And it's so many floors and it's so much information, and it can be a little emotional. But yeah, 10 out of 10 recommend. There's also another museum that was really great in Montgomery, Alabama. I can't think of the name of it now. I'm trying to think. It's over there by the boat area where they dock the boats. No, it's not over there. That's the new shopping center. Anyway, look it up. There is a great African American, I don't know if it's considered to be a museum in Montgomery, but it's this display, and they've actually got some new stuff out there too. Check it out if you're in Montgomery, Alabama, in that area. They have some great cultural things. You know, they docked there. They brought us in through that area. She also mentioned to take cultural vacations. Be selective about your TV shows that you're bringing in. Curate influences at home. Actively join groups that speak to Black interests and empowerment. Dream bigger than the American dream. Write your own future, one that does not hinge on how much of a white middle-class reality you can create for your daughter. It might somehow seem the easier route, but only because that route will encounter the least amount of resistance from the oppressor and those who are oppressed in the mind. Suicide occurs when there is no hope for the future. You can no longer be reactive to everyday discrimination and subtle messages that your voice and your existence are valueless. America will find ways to be what it has always been, so stop waiting for goodness to prevail. What if goodness is waiting for you to use your gifts to lift your own self up? Celebrate who you are rather than mourn fearful women who will call the police on you. Under no circumstances can you reclaim your mind and obtain peak fortitude without embracing who you are or who you are to become. Get the book, guys. 10 out of 10. Recommend. Share with a friend. Yeah, I mean, this is it. Get it. I mean, if you did not feel empowered by that, if you did not come alive, and there's so much more in this book, and you see I have tabs to reference back, and get it for your children and your children's children, and pick it up and just look it over again, even after you've read it. Share it with a friend. I even have white friends I've shared it with, because I want them to understand me more. Like, you know, it's so interesting. I had a coworker, and during the pandemic, I worked with him for like almost 14 years. And I think during the pandemic, when we were just sat down and we couldn't do anything and we had to be still, I remember he said to me, after the George Floyd stuff had happened, and it was several other incidents that took place during that time, he came and apologized to me, guys. Like, he said, I just want to apologize. It's a white man. He said, I did not realize that I have been part of the problem. He said, did not realize that you are carrying all of this. He said, and because we were forced to sit still during COVID, and I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't run from it, it was right here on my TV. He said, when I saw all the things happening to your community, I immediately thought of you. He said, I thought of you because I've known you for all these years. You come in, you work hard, you don't complain. And he said, you are an amazing person. And he said, I just could not imagine the things that you are carrying, knowing that you have a son, knowing that the way your community is being attacked, you know, knowing how I contributed myself to certain microaggressions or just saying things that I had no idea. Some of the things that he said I am educating myself now. And I think he wanted to get the book How to Be an Anti-Racism, but he said he was also just, you know, wanting to. He's like in his 60s. He might be, yeah, he was almost 70 in his 60s, and he was just like, he was just really, I think, in shock, like at how tone deaf he said he felt like he had been. And I really appreciated him and his honesty. And, you know, I do believe there are people out here that, because what is going on does not impact them, they don't see it. And I say that because I have Black friends that, I'm not gonna say that they feel like they're different, but certain things don't impact them because they're not in a certain social economic status, and they've just never been affected in certain ways. So they even lack a certain understanding or choose to ignore certain things. So I know if someone Black can ignore certain things that directly really impacts them and their people, if they can ignore it because of where they live or the community they stay, then I know that if you're white, you can totally be oblivious to it. So I don't know where that came from. Anyway, pick up the book, click like and subscribe, and I will be back with another book. Have an amazing Tuesday. I hope you guys had a restful Labor Day on yesterday. Take care. I speak nothing but inner peace, positivity, and empower over you. Bye-bye.